While Tyronn Lue deserves way more credit for his game-to-game adjustments, particularly with his lineup management, the bold starting lineup featuring 3 guards and 2 forwards didn't work particularly well. However, when he replaced the young and energetic Terrence Mann with the grizzled and slow Nicola Batum, it was that 5-man lineup that completely changed the game, unlocked Paul George, and might have reversed the course of this series, as the Clippers grabbed Game 5 by the neck, shook it to the ground, and put it out of its misery. The Clippers had let complete control of the game slip away by the 8-minute mark of the third quarter, and Ty Lue was desperate to solve this puzzle. So he sent out a group of players in Batum, Jackson, George, Morris, and Beverly that had not played 1 minute together in the regular season and only 7 minutes on the floor during the playoffs previously. With Ayton on the floor and Morris being their biggest player, the Clippers went to a 2-3 zone. The Suns instantly set a step-up screen on Beverly, which creates a one-on-one situation with CP3 snaking to the free throw line for his patented pull-up jumper. The Clippers come down and seem unsure of what they want to run. PG thinks Reggie is going to reverse the ball, but Reggie then wants a ball screen, and this offensive confusion causes defensive confusion as well. Suddenly they're doubling Jackson and have to scramble switch to cover everybody. The poor closeout by Crowder allows George to get a step by him, and then bound for a slow-motion bucket plus the foul. Lest you think this is a travel, and Mark Jackson thought so, it's not. You start counting steps when the dribble ends, not when it last dribbles. The left foot is down when both hands touch the ball. That is the gather step. He's allowed 2 more steps after this. He only takes 1. Nothing in the rules states how long or short that step needs to be or how long he can take before jumping off of it. Believe it or not, he had another legal step with the left foot if he wanted it. When the right foot lands, it becomes the pivot foot. It doesn't matter if the back foot drags or touches the ground multiple times, and the simple jump into the shot gets him the nice bucket. Back in the zone, the Suns run the same exact play, but this time, Beverly passes off Ayton to Morris and contests the shot himself. This was much more effective as the shot surprisingly misses. On their next possession, the Suns use the ball screen, but this time on the other side for Booker. This resembles a man-to-man since the Suns align themselves along the perimeter, but Booker can't finish the wild lefty shot in the face of a great contest by Morris. Here's where that coaching thing comes in. Notice how the Clippers suddenly go back to man-to-man, but the matchups are unique. Paul George is on Chris Paul, and the Suns correctly want to go high-low with a huge size advantage down low with Morris on Ayton. The change in defense threw them off, and normally a quick swing would allow Ayton to spin and duck in for an opening, but Chris Paul had drifted to the corner, and Crowder throws it to Monty Williams. When Reggie's probe was contained, they simply reverse it to PG and force a switch. Crowder contains well. This is the shot they're okay giving up, but Paul George is too good from 15 feet. This defensive possession was cool. You can see George calling out zone, and indeed that's what they're in to start. They bring Crowder up to set the ball screen for CP3 with Ayton brought up to the weak side elbow. The zone allows them to surround the ball, and look how aggressive the guards are knowing they've got 3 guys behind them. Watch Booker as he cuts through the lane. Batum signals to Paul George to stick with him on the overload, and this essentially morphs from a zone to a man-to-man, with Booker missing the corner 3 and Paul George in the area. Also notice how Beverly rotates back to take George's spot as the weak side forward, so the zone rotates like a carousel around the center. It's way too late in the season to be dealing with confusion when getting back in transition, and yet Crowder and Chris Paul can't figure out who's on the ball till it's too late. Beverly is laying it up over Ayton. In order to combat the zone, Booker wants to attack early before it sets up. While PG's zone was on the left side, he comes all the way over to guard the ball, expertly taking the charge while he's at it. It's always impressive to see your number 1 guy sacrificing his body by taking a charge. And that's the kind of initiative you need when buying tickets. And that reminds me of SeatGeek, the best place on the internet to shop for tickets to any sporting event, concert, and even the theater. They find tickets from all over the web and grade the prices to let you know you're getting the best deal. There's at least one more game in this series, So fire up the SeatGeek app and go see them in person so you can brag about these new lineups Tyronn Lue is throwing out there. Even better, nudge the guy next to you and tell him you saved $20 off your first purchase when you used my code BBALL. So get in the game with SeatGeek and we can finally put to rest all this Paul George slander that's been propagated on social media. He's come up huge for the Clippers time and time again throughout this playoffs, and he scored 23 of his 41 points in this 5-man lineup as they try to force Booker onto him, but instead he just takes Bridges to the weight room, draws the foul, and almost gets the and one. Here's where the game went a little sideways. Pat Beverley is an instigator, make no mistake about it, and you have to respect his effort to get through every ball screen. Now, Chris Paul is also an instigator, so this hard foul and bounce off his tailbone was partly because CP3 jumped into Beverley. While Beverley got caught in an off-balance position squeaking through here, it is clear Paul did an unnatural motion to jump back into him and create the contact. It was unfortunate that his legs got taken out once he got in the air, but this shouldn't have been a flagrant foul considering Paul had as much to do with the contact as Beverley did. The Clippers go back to man, hoping to keep the Suns guessing and off rhythm, but they quickly go to the high ball screen with CP3 and Ayton and are powerless to stop the perfect lob from going into the hoop. Without Marcus Morris, there's no way the Clippers win yesterday. While he did cool off from his 8 for 10 start in the first half, he finds himself being guarded by the wiry but light Mikal Bridges, so he takes him right to the dotted line for a fadeaway jumper. Back in the zone after a make, the Clippers have to deal with the same step-up screen for CP3. Again, Beverley chases to allow Morris to stick with Ayton rolling, and you can't fault the play. Great shot, but it just barely rolls out. And after bouncing on his butt, CP3 is then shucked to the ground embarrassingly by Paul George, who cold buries the three to further cement his status as a bona fide number 1 on a very good team. The key is that his left elbow stays tucked and tight, using CP3's momentum against him as he perfectly times the right foot plant and the arm swing up into the shot. The Suns needed something else to combat this zone other than the simple ball screen out top. It was too easy to contain, and once the shot clock started getting under 10, the zone becomes even harder to deal with. They needed to flash somebody to the high post or reverse and attack the seam between the guard and the forward. Instead, they rely on a Booker ISO right into the teeth of the defense, and Booker is able to flail a twisting shot into free throws. However, he misses both of them. On the other end, the Clippers don't have to run much when a simple ball screen catches Campaign going underneath. PG shoots a wide open set shot and the lead is now 13. Finally, the Suns attack that seam between the guard and the forward. Morris has to now stop ball. George must rotate to Ayton at the rim, and that leaves Cam Johnson wide open in the corner. Again, not much offense from the Clippers, just an organic ball screen from Beverley that gets George to the block. Awesome defense by Johnson to contain this. So why the heck is Campaign running down at him? This foolish decision leads to another wide open 3, and the lead is back to 12. Let's move to the fourth, where the Clippers are back in man-to-man with this lineup, and the Suns force the mismatch off the ball screen, and CP3 goes to work on Morris with the nice crossover pull-up free throw line jumper. I like the Torrey Craig pressure on PG, who was struggling with his ball handling a bit, but watch what happens in the corner. Saric wants Booker to switch onto Morris so he can be involved in defending the pick and roll. This would only happen if they were planning on switching this. However, Craig can't allow one thing: George to reject the screen. There is no help that way, and George gets all the way to the rim for a basket and a 7-point cushion. Pushing the ball in transition, Batum is open cutting to the hoop, but this nonchalant pass is easily deflected into a turnover, but Booker again misses in what was a struggle to finish at the rim all night long. And this is where it felt like maybe the Suns were going to get this game. The awful behind-the-back turnover by Paul George on the ISO on Booker leads to the Cameron Johnson layup and slightly phantom foul on Morris. I just don't see enough contact to merit a whistle, but it's what happens with aggressive contests at the rim. To make matters even more terrible, Paul George commits a silly foul on the free throw, but he's lucky there's a rule that says you only get one free throw on a personal foul committed during a successful free throw. Clinging to a 4-point lead and waiting for the magic of the special lineup to reappear, they run pistol across the top with a pin away into handoff for Paul George, which makes Ayton switch onto him. Craig sprints over there on a double, compromising the weak side as Booker has to guard 2 players, and the swing to Reggie gets him a comfortable catch and a rise up from deep to extend their lead. We finally get a Spain pick and roll sighting as Booker sets the back screen, but because of the timing, it ends up being a ho-hum double ball screen that's well contained. They force another switch to let Booker attack Morris, and more finishing trouble for Booker under intense pressure. Ayton wasn't able to exert his height advantage at all during this stretch as he misses twice at the front of the rim. More transition defensive woes for the Suns as Paul George isn't pushing the pace that fast, but Craig can't recover and Booker's attempt at a charge isn't gonna cut it. Interesting that the Clippers opted not to use the zone at all in the fourth, but it lured Booker into isolating more than normal. The problem with driving in this direction is that it's right at Ayton, allowing his man to step up and Paul George to easily guard 2 players. That said, the closeout was poor and Craig gets to the middle where role players can look like stars. That same pistol action they ran earlier gets bottled up with a nice switch by Booker, but the Beverly slip screen lures CP3 into a double team, forcing Craig to guard a cutting Beverly and a spotting up Jackson. He has to move to Beverly a step, and that opens up another comfortable catch for Reggie and a crucial dagger that just about ends this game early. Watch Batum deny Chris Paul the ball. Because it's Booker inbounding, he's not eligible to receive the pass, and they're forced to give it to Cam Johnson, who was terrific last night, but clearly being a dribble drive artist is not his role, as he eventually drives across the court and tosses up a bad lob that gets stolen. While Booker stunts at Reggie, he then jumps right out of his way. Inexplicable mistake, and Reggie's one-handed dunk effectively ended this game. With 2 starters injured, Tyronn Lue and the Clippers had plenty of excuses to pack it in on the road against a very good team, but he continually makes great adjustments with his lineups and caught Monty Williams and the Suns ill-prepared to combat that zone in the third quarter. So, we get a Game 6 back in Staples, where it's unclear to me who has the advantage and where this series might go. But you can bet I can't wait for the chess match to continue.